Be me, 27-year-old female, PhD candidate in industrial sociology, specializing in corporate negligence and labor exploitation, writing dissertation on the oil and gas industry. Thesis revolves around how hyper-masculine cultures create unsafe work environments. Convinced that ego and testosterone are the primary causes of industrial accidents. View oil rigs as floating bastions of patriarchy destroying the planet. Secure a grant to spend 6 weeks as an observer on a dive support vessel, DSV, in the North Sea. Mission is to document safety violations and toxic workplace culture, expecting to see cowboys, crude jokes, and reckless behavior. Expecting to validate my theory that men take risks to show off, arrive in Aberdeen. Helicopter ride out to the vessel, the DSV Goliath. The ocean is gray, angry, and terrifying. Land on the helipad. Wind is howling at 40 knots. Met by the Offshore Installation Manager, OIM. He's polite, distant, all business. Takes me to my quarters. Tiny cabin, smells of diesel, and industrial cleaner. Get assigned to observe the saturation diving control room. This is the heart of the operation. Meet the dive supervisor, angry Scottish man named Callum. He looks at me like I'm a loose bolt in a high-pressure line. Tells me to sit in the corner and touch nothing. Lives are on the line, lass. Don't distract my men. Typical gatekeeping. I sit and open my notebook, ready to record their misogyny. First shift begins. On the screens, I see the divers. They are 100 meters down. Living in a pressurized habitat hanging off the side of the ship, they breathe a mixture of helium and oxygen. Their voices sound like Donald Duck. I suppress a laugh. Callum doesn't laugh. He is staring at the monitors with intensity I've never seen. Watching their breathing rates. Watching the temperature of their suits. Meet Diver 1, Badger, 35 years old. Former Navy clearance diver. Listening to his comms. He's working on a flange bolt that refuses to turn. It's pitch black down there. Only light is his headlamp. The water is 4 degrees Celsius. If his hot water suit fails, he dies of hypothermia in minutes. I expect him to curse, to get angry, to force it. Instead, he is incredibly calm. Topside, bolt is seized. Requesting hydraulic torque wrench. Over. No ego. No rage. Just problem solving. Watch them work for 12 hours straight. Number breaks. They pee in their suits. They eat nutrient paste through a tube in the helmet if they have to. Shift ends. I go to the mess hall to eat with the support crew, expecting rowdy locker room talk. Sit next to a life support technician, LST, named Davo. He looks like he hasn't slept in a week. Ask him what he does. I keep the boys alive while they sleep, he says. He monitors the oxygen levels in the pressurized living chamber 24/7. If he turns a dial wrong, they all die in their sleep, or their brains boil. He tells me about the stress. They're my brothers. If I mess up, their kids grow up without dads. He shows me a picture of his own daughter. She has cerebral palsy. He works 8 months a year offshore to pay for her treatments. It's good money, he says, staring at his mashed potatoes. But she doesn't know who I am anymore. Start to notice the demographics of the ship. 120 crew members, 118 men, 2 women, me and a stewardess. These men are missing birthdays, anniversaries, first steps, funerals. They are trading their lives for paychecks to send home. Next day, back in dive control, an alarm goes off. Umbilical alarm. One of the diver's tethers is snagged on debris. Diver 2, Miller, is trapped. He has 10 minutes of emergency air in his bailout bottle. Tension in the room is suffocating. No one is yelling. No one is panicking. It is a quiet, deadly focus. Callum gives clear, concise instructions. Badger, follow Miller's umbilical. Find the snag. Do not rush. Badger has to leave the safety of the diving bell. He swims into the dark, murky water. Visibility is 0, silt everywhere. He is working by touch, finding the metal cable wrapped around a jagged piece of old piping. He cuts his glove on the metal. Hand is bleeding. Freezing water entering his suit. He doesn't mention it. Frees Miller with 2 minutes of air to spare. They return to the bell. I realize I have been holding my breath for 15 minutes. My hands are shaking. Their hands are steady. This isn't toxic masculinity. This is heroic stoicism. If they panicked, they would be dead. Later, I get permission to talk to the divers via intercom while they are in the chamber. They are in saturation. Their bodies are saturated with inert gas. They cannot leave the chamber. If they came to the surface without decompressed for 5 days, they would explode. They are prisoners in a steel tube the size of a minivan. 4 grown men living on top of each other. Ask them about their lives, expecting stories of conquests and cars. Miller talks about his garden. He grows prize-winning roses, misses the smell of dirt. Badger talks about his ex-wife. She left him because he was never home. I was trying to buy us a house, he says, voice squeaky from the helium, but heavy with regret. By the time I could afford it, there was no us left. He sends her 70% of his paycheck anyway, wants her to be happy. Meet Tiny, a 6'5" giant squeezed into the bunk. He's reading philosophy. Marcus Aurelius. You have to control your mind down here, he tells me. The dark gets inside you if you let it. He tells me about the bends, the pain in the joints, the necrosis of the bone over time. Most of these men will be crippled by age 50. Osteonecrosis. Their bones literally die from the pressure changes. They know this. They do it anyway. Because the world needs oil. Because their families need money. Start walking around the ship at night. See men sitting alone in the rec room, staring at phones that have no signal, just looking at old photos. The loneliness is palpable. It's a ship full of ghosts who are still alive. Talk to the deck foreman, Lars, missing 3 fingers on his left hand. Chain snapped in '98, he says casually. Did you sue? I ask. He laughs. It was my fault. Stood in the bite. Company paid for the surgery. I was back in 6 weeks. He doesn't see himself as a victim. He sees the ocean as a beast he wrestles with. Sometimes the beast wins around. He takes pride in his scars, not because he's a brute, but because he survived providing for his family. Week 3 brings a massive storm. 10-meter waves. The ship is heaving. The dynamic positioning DP system is fighting to keep the ship stationary. If the ship moves too much, the divers' umbilicals will snap. They are still down there, can't bring them up fast enough. Decompression takes days. They are sitting ducks at the bottom of the ocean. The thrusters are screaming. Engine room crew is working overtime. I go down to the engine room. The heat is unbearable, 45 degrees Celsius. Noise is deafening. Men are running around with wrenches the size of femurs. A hydraulic line bursts. High-pressure oil sprays everywhere. A young guy, maybe 22, throws himself on the manual shutoff valve. Hot oil scalds his arms. He screams but doesn't let go until the valve is closed. Medic patches him up. He refuses to go off shift. We lose pressure. The DP fails. The divers die, he says. His skin is blistering. He wraps it in gauze and goes back to monitoring the gauges. I go back to my cabin and cry. I have spent my life writing papers about fragile masculinity, calling men emotional infants, while these men are literally burning themselves alive to save each other. They don't ask for praise. They don't post about it on social media. They just do it because it needs to be done. Start researching mortality rates in offshore industries. It's staggering. 98% of workplace fatalities are men. Deep-sea fishing, logging, oil rigs, roofing, mining. The infrastructure of civilization is built on the bones of disposable men. I think about the gas that heats my apartment, the plastic in my laptop, the electricity running the university. It all comes from here, from the dark, cold, dangerous places where we send men, and we mock them for being rough. Of course they are rough. They are fighting the elements so we can have lattes and write blogs. Meet a welder named Gregor. He's doing hyperbaric welding underwater in a dry habitat, the most dangerous job in the world. One spark in the wrong gas mix, and he's ash. He's an artist with the torch. Tells me he wanted to be an architect, couldn't afford college. Dad died in a mine, had to support his mom and 3 sisters. I build things that no one will ever see, he says, but they hold the world together. He has a poetic soul trapped in a battered body. He shows me sketches he makes in his downtime, beautiful charcoal drawings of the machinery. Turning the industrial monsters into art, he will never be in a gallery. He will likely die of lung issues from the fumes. But he smiles when he talks about his niece's piano lessons. He pays for them. She's gonna play at Carnegie Hall one day, he beams. He is sacrificing his lungs for her music. Week 5. A tragedy on a nearby rig, a helicopter crash. 14 men dead. The mood on our ship is somber. No one talks. They all know the guys. It's a small community. I expect a grief counselor to fly in. No one comes. They have a moment of silence in the mess hall. Then they go back to work. They grieve by working harder, by checking the safety latches one more time, by patting each other on the shoulder, a silent language of support. I try to talk to Callum about it. We mourn, he says, but the gas doesn't stop flowing. If we stop, the lights go out in London. The burden of responsibility they carry is immense. They are Atlas holding up the sky, and the sky doesn't care about them. I look at the women's advocacy groups I follow online. Posts about air conditioning is sexist. Posts about manspreading on the subway. It suddenly feels so petty, so incredibly privileged. Here are men being crushed by 20 atmospheres of pressure, and we are complaining about how they sit on a train. I feel a deep sense of shame. My dissertation premise is crumbling. I came to find villains. I found martyrs. End of the rotation. The divers are brought up. The decompression process takes 4 days. I wait to see them emerge. When the hatch finally opens, the smell is awful. Unwashed bodies, humidity, chemical funk. They crawl out, pale, shaking, weak. Gravity hits them hard after a month in the water. Badger looks 10 years older than when he went in. He sees me and winks. Did you get your story, darling? I can't speak. I just nod. They help each other walk to the showers, leaning on each other. The bond between them is stronger than any marriage I've seen. Forged in death and darkness. Helicopter ride back to shore. I sit next to the young guy with the burned arms. He's going home to his girlfriend. He's worried she'll think the scars are ugly. I tell him they are beautiful. I tell him they are medals. He blushes and looks away. Just doing my job, miss. Land in Aberdeen. The noise of the city, the traffic, the people. It all feels fake. I see men in suits complaining about their coffee orders. I want to scream at them. I want to tell them about the men in the dark, about the cold, about the sacrifice. Return to university. Meeting with my thesis advisor, she asks for my draft on toxic masculinity at sea. I'd place a new stack of papers on her desk. Title: The Silent Sentinel, Vulnerability and Sacrifice in High-Risk Industrial Labor. She frowns. This sounds like you're sympathizing with the patriarchy. I tell her there is no patriarchy on the bottom of the ocean. There is only physics and brotherhood. I tell her about Davo and his daughter, about Badger and his ex-wife, about the kid with the burned arms. She says it doesn't fit the department's narrative, suggests I rewrite it to focus on their exclusionary language. I refuse. I drop the PhD program. I can't write academic jargon about these men anymore. It feels like a betrayal. Get a job as a safety liaison for an offshore union. My job is to fight for better gear, better pay, better mental health support for them. I spend my days listening to them, really listening, not judging them for their crude jokes, understanding that humor is their armor against the terror. Start a blog sharing their stories anonymously. Voices from the deep. Talk about the suicide rates in the industry, the divorce rates, the physical toll. Get hate mail from my old feminist friends. They call me a pick-me girl. Say I've internalized misogyny. I don't care. I received a letter yesterday from Badger. Handwriting is shaky. He retired. Bone necrosis in his hips. Can't walk well. Says he read my article about the crew. Thanks for seeing us, he wrote. Most people look right through us. You looked at us. I pinned the letter to my wall. It's worth more than any doctorate. I used to think I was fighting for equality. I realized I was just fighting for my own comfort. True equality means acknowledging the cost of civilization and acknowledging the men who pay that cost. Every time I turn on a light switch, every time I fill my car with gas, I whisper a thank you to the men in the dark, the disposable men, the heroes who don't think they are heroes. I am no longer a feminist in the way I was. I am a humanist, and I am forever in debt to the rough, scarred, quiet men who keep the world turning. The world is built on their broken backs, and they carry it without complaint, just hoping anyone notices before they break completely.